Everybody, this is Will from the Will Wisdom Interviews, and I'm here with Nick del Castillo, motivational speaker. Hey Nick, how'd you get into motivational speaking?
Hey Will, yeah, thanks for asking. First, I'd like to thank you for interviewing me. This is actually my first interview as a motivational speaker. And the way I got into it is actually kind of a long story. I really like sharing ideas with people. I like socializing. I like philosophical things. And that's something that I've always been really passionate about. And then what happened is that back in 2011, I said to myself, I definitely want to give this a try, but I didn't quite have the willpower. I was a little bit doubting myself. It was too difficult. So back in February in 2012, I decided to start my own website, which I had at the time. It's now defunct, called virtuous-life.com, and I started doing a blog post every month. And then after 4 years of blogging, I decided to turn this my first book called Virtues to Happiness. And then I did From Zero to Success in 2017. And after that, I said to myself, well, I think I want to revive the motivational speaking because I have to promote these books. Do you know what I mean? And I figured, well, this is my chance to promote them by doing speeches. And then the whole thing of motivational speaking revived in June of 2017, and I've been doing it since.
Thanks, Nick. Okay, let's see. This is a similar question, but maybe a bit more personal.
It's okay.
Tell me if you think this is a different question or not. Nick, what motivates you as a motivational speaker?
Wow, another great question, Will. There's actually many things, and actually the first thing that comes to mind is, it's kind of grandiose, but I definitely want to mention this is love. Because I think when you really have love, when you really have passion for what you do, that's the driving force. You know what I mean? Because you could be driven by money, prestige, honors, wealth, but at the end of the day, these things fade away, and you really can't grasp onto these. But really what remains is your love, your passion for what you do, and that really motivates me. Also, I get this great joy of seeing people motivated through my motivation. One motivational speech I gave back in Harlem, there was this teenage girl that came up to me and said, "Mr. Del Castillo, I have a plan now. I want to be a scientist." And that really moved my heart. I thought that was great. I was like, wow, even if I just influenced her just a tiny bit, she probably already had that seed planted in her mind. But now I took her a step forward after she listened to my speech. So I felt very moved by that, and I want to keep doing that. And I feel very happy motivating others, and in motivating others, I motivate myself. It's the gift that keeps on giving.
Let's see what else I can ask you to...
Sure.
Do you feel like you're on the hot seat?
I guess in the good sense. Yeah, this is my first interview, and I just feel this great opportunity to share what I have to say with others, and even to share with you, Will, right here, and
Yes,
I feel great.
I am here. I'm also learning and interested in what you have to say. So, okay, here's you may have touched on this, but what do you think is ultimately going to motivate a person?
Wow, that's another very great and also a very deep question.
Or it doesn't have to get too deep, but whatever.
Sure.
Answer however you want.
Yeah, well, I guess I'll first say that you can learn a particular skill, like a woods craftsman can learn how to cut wood and to make certain designs. You can actually learn accounting. You can learn finance. Someone can learn how to dance. They could learn a technical skill. The thing with motivation is that's a little bit tricky because it really lies in the deepest parts of one's soul. So really, I think it's a little bit like that old adage that you could lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink it. So the thing is that I think with motivation, what I try to do and what I do through my books and also through my speeches is to ignite that fire, to spark that fire, because the coals are there in everybody, right? The thing is that igniting that fire, once that fire is ignited, that person can have the impulse to move forward, but that person has to make the choice. All I could do is make things nice and sweet, but the person has to move forward. So I think ultimately It's through many things, through encouragement, through learning more about the virtues, which are good habits. There's many different angles one can take, but yeah, there's many different things that you can go about it.
Nick, how about let's say you're in front of a bunch of people,
Mm-hmm.
a room or a crowd.
Sure.
How do you what's your, I don't know, strategy or philosophy about how to reach as many of those people as possible?
So what I try to do is in my beginning of my speech, try to shock the audience. Sometimes I say, when you first woke up this morning, what was the first thought that came to your head? Because people want to hear that. They want to hear something that's going to shock them. No one likes to hear an introduction. No one likes to hear, sorry I'm late. Or no one wants to hear, oh, it's good to be here with you guys. They want to dive right into it, especially me being from New York. They want to, they want you to get right to the point. Also, the thing, too, that I do in my speeches, I did at least in one of them, is give them one thing that they could take away from. Saying, okay, you want to change the world? Just write down one thing you're going to do. It could be waking up 5 minutes earlier. It could be, I'm going to do the dishes every day. It could be any little goal is better than having a lot of goals and having them all fall apart. So that's the thing. I try to be entertaining, philosophical, practical, and combine that all into one soup.
Sounds like a delicious soup, Nick.
Thanks.
Let's see. I'm looking through my notes here, ladies and gentlemen.
Should we pause for like a little commercial break? We could do a little commercial break. So I am the author of Virtues to Happiness and From Zero to Success. This could be found actually on Amazon.com. I'm sure you guys have all heard of Amazon. End of commercial break.
Nick, I have heard of Amazon. Isn't that a rainforest?
That's right. Well, we're more of a Generation X crowd, but for the millennials, it's totally something else.
Nick, okay. Now, in this present age, how would you describe how you might go about reaching today's audience in particular? How would you describe it, and how did you go about that?
Sure. I think today's audience is a little bit more challenging because, they say the millennials have short attention spans, but not to knock on millennials, but I think that all of us in general have short attention spans. One person told me, you have the attention span, take your age and turn that into minutes. So I hope we're not in trouble here because I'm 36, so it's got to last more than 36 minutes. But anyway, we'll see how things roll. So yeah, it is challenging and nowadays because we have information overload. I think back in the day, maybe 200, 100 years ago, there was very little information. And now we have the other extreme of too much information and a lot of like electrical or electronic devices, which both it's like a tool and a toy. So what I try to do to reach the modern audience is, especially the young people, is to try to be very spontaneous, try to be very direct, try to be entertaining, try to reach them at their level, and have some fun. Because basically what I tell people is that if you're a genius and you can't communicate your ideas, then you remain a genius, but without being able to reach people. But if you're someone of average intelligence, but you're able to connect with people, then that's great, because even one thing that you can change in someone's life is already a step forward in the right direction, and it fills my heart.
All right, Nick. Now, what if, say, someone is discouraged for whatever reason from failures or fears, doubts? Do you have any advice for overcoming those?
Sure. I think the best thing to do is to focus in on the present. There was like this Chinese proverb that says that if you focus on the past, you're going to get depressed. If you focus on the future, you're going to be anxious. But if you focus on the present, you'll always be happy. Now, easier said than done, because I tend to, worry myself, and I'm a little bit of an anxious person, but I try to channel the energy that I do have for those nervous energy into positive outlets. So the thing is that I like what kind of paraphrasing Tony Robbins, he said that, the past doesn't have to equal the future unless you live there. So if you live in the present, you could always start with a new clean slate, and you never know what you could accomplish. Now, I would disagree with some inspirational speakers that say you can do whatever you want unless you put your mind to it. I would disagree. But what I would agree with is that we can do a lot more if that we think we can. We could do a heck of a lot more. And the thing is that we limit ourselves.
So you think, can you say that again about...
Hit the rewind button. I just hit the rewind button for you. Sure.
Can you say that again about where you disagree with many motivational speakers?
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, see, I got lost in thought there. So, yeah, where I would disagree is they say, oh, yeah, you could do, whatever you want as long as you put your mind to it, because sometimes you have these people that they say, yeah, I'm going to be an NBA basketball player, and that person could wake up at 6 a.m, go to all the best coaches and have the best training and not make it. But what I would tell that person is that that's not the point of life. The point of life isn't to become an NBA basketball player. It isn't to become the latest model or to become a billionaire or even a millionaire. The goal is to use your talents to the best of your ability at the service of the others. Because when you do that, you're going to be happy. Also, another thing that I mentioned, I think in one of the speeches, is that when you focus in, either my speeches or one of my motivational quotes, is that when you focus in on reality, you're going to achieve your fantasies. If you achieve your fantasies, they may never become realities.
I like that, Nick. No, that I think there's a lot
Did
of
it hit the
wisdom
spot?
in that.
It hit the spot.
So, what else am I trying to say? We can edit this out.
No, it's okay. I mean, yeah, up to you.
Who's that? And I can vouch for Nick. I think he's knowing him on a personal level. We are friends, not just partners in business.
Or partners in crime,
he does
accomplice.
connect very well with people, and I think he's a good person to be able to inspire others with his, not just with what he says, but with his energy and personality. Okay, here's my next question, Nick. Another deep one. What would you say you're trying... You kind of touched on it with the talents. What would you say you're trying to motivate people towards? Anything in particular, or do you leave that up to them to decide?
Wow. So another, very detailed, very specific question. And, with my speeches, what I try to help them focus on is a goal that they want to achieve, whether it's to go to college, whether it's to start their own business, whether it's to achieve anything. So I do have a speech called The 5 Secrets of Success. So real briefly, I'll give you the short version, the little nutshell version, which is 1, you have to have a goal. 2, you have to have a plan. 3, have a mentor. 4, focus in on the little things and do them well. And the 5th thing, the most important one, is don't give up. So this could apply to many different things. So I try to catch like a broad audience, although I do deal more with like the youth, but this could apply to anybody, whether it's someone who's retired and wants to turn a new leaf, or whether it's someone who's a teenager and wants to know their goal and mission in life. Just keep those 5 things in mind. And am I guaranteeing success? Absolutely not. But you get a little bit closer by doing them.
So, Nick, what about, okay, this is partly for personal reasons I want to ask this. For a specific issue, how would you motivate, or what advice would you give to someone who wants to start a business?
Well, I would first start with what you love. Passion. What do you genuinely enjoy? So the thing is, sometimes when people think about business, they think, I have to have a business plan, and I have to have connections and money, and you need money to make money, which there is certain truth to that. But people kind of miss the forest for the trees. And what they really need to focus in on is, what do you genuinely love? Once you have that as a starting point, then you put in your full energy into doing that, because with your energy, you attract other energies, other people with energy, and then it creates the snowball effect. So once you just push down that snowball, it starts to pile down and creates this huge boulder of a snowball, and it could be a force to be reckoned with.
Let's see. Okay, here's one. What about tools such as I don't know, any? Do you are there any things you recommend people to like use to stay motivated? I don't know.
Absolutely.
Movies, music, stuff on their desk, anything like that?
Absolutely. You know what it begins with? An alarm clock. That's what I would start out first. So with me personally, and I mentioned this in one of my speeches, in fact my last one back in October, is have 2 alarm clocks. One that you have right near your nightstand, and the second one where you have to get up to turn it off. Because if you all of a sudden reach out your hand and just hit the snooze button, you may oversleep. But if you put the second alarm for 5 minutes later, all the way across the room, then you're forced to get up. And then once you get up, you get the day rolling. So it's important to, in the beginning of the day, be grateful for something. Because sometimes people, when they wake up on the Monday morning, they think, crud, I gotta go to work, and I'm not feeling too well, or I don't want to deal with this colleague, or that boss, or that meeting. But if you wake up in the morning and show gratitude, not only are you not thinking about yourself, but you're being thankful, and 2, you're getting rid of the negativity and negative energy. So that's what I would say first. I think that the alarm clock is a big help, because it really sets the tone for the rest of the day.
Okay, Nick. I was wondering if you have an opinion or a view on using meditation or anything like that. Any type of reflection. Is that important in this journey?
Sure, and so it's interesting that you mentioned that, is because I currently use Headspace, and I try to do it, once a day, and they have really good, practices for focusing, and that's one of the areas I think that I think I could really improve in, having this like laser focus, So I like Aristotle, because how do you learn how to swim? You got to dive into the water. How do you learn how to run? You start running. I think these are things that Aristotle would agree with. So the thing is, just like I see, kind of the mind, the brain as kind of think of it like a muscle. You got to exercise it, and train yourself to really focus. To really calm one's nerves, to channel one's energy, and I think that there can be some positive things with that. I also, try to lead a life of prayer, and I think that's been, very, very good.
Thank you, Nick. Let's see, what else can I ask you? All right, Nick. What is your professional background? You haven't always been a motivational speaker. What else have you been doing?
Sure, I kind of have an eclectic background. I've been through all different jobs and professions, and looking back on it, this has actually crafted me into becoming a motivational speaker. Because what I've noticed is that there's a lot of motivational speakers, at least the ones that I've seen from like the internet, that they didn't have these cookie cutter backgrounds. They've all had these like crazy obstacles or crazy things, and they all use all the craziness to their advantage. And so my professional background is mainly with education and in business. I know that as a kid, I wanted to be like my dad, to go into business. So I went to Baruch College. I started out accounting and finance. I didn't like it. I switched to history. I thought I'd go into teaching. And then it's just been kind of a roller coaster. I worked for a school in Harlem. It closed down after about a year. I worked for a company that sold flights on private jets, and they eventually went under. And then, I've just been finding my journey in different jobs. Right now, I currently work in sales, selling business advertising. And life's been an adventure and a journey. And whether in the jobs I've had in the past, whether they've been a little bit more challenging or more difficult, looking back on them, is that, like what one of my friends said, is that from every experience that you have, there's always something you could learn. So never see something as a total waste of time or total negativity, even though at the time they feel that way, because you never know when you know, life is equipping you with these tools so that you can move forward. Think of it like taking this rubber band and expanding it. As soon as you put an object there and you let it go, that baby's gonna fly.
Now, Nick, thank you, Nick. No, we're not done yet, but I would like to thank you for that last answer.
Sure.
You made my job easier because you answered another one of my questions, which was if any of your experiences had led to your motivation, your pursuing being a motivational speaker, your
Sure.
desire to help others.
Yeah.
Okay, here's another one. What people have influenced you? Rubbed off on you.
Sure. Absolutely. Yeah. So,
Do you have any heroes, Nick, or people who have motivated you to motivate?
yeah, no, absolutely. One guy that I'll never forget was the boss that I had in the private jet job that I worked in New York City. He's like a real leader. He really he's the type of guy that's got your back. I remember one time when I was sick, he got me some medicinal tea. He just had it, like, the little packet right on my desk. He also was like a real kind of motivator. He gave like these great kind of off-the-cuff speeches. And one of them that I'll never forget is the one where he mentioned the story of not giving up. You know, he said that people have a tendency to quit 5 minutes before the miracle. They're just about to get over difficulty. They're just about to get over something, and they quit early on. And that forever has been ingrained in me. And I think because of his off-the-cuff speech right there, when I was there working in the private aviation business, I was like, wow, this guy is really at another level. And also he spoke very directly, like a New Yorker does, and very simply, and he spoke right from the heart. I remember people were asking him, should we speak with the assistant or the CEO to book the flight? And he says, well, what do you think? Do you want to speak to an angel or do you want to talk to God? And then people were complaining, too, about hanging up the phone on them. And he says, okay, that's okay. That's like them taking their king and putting it down in chess. They lost. So he always had an answer for something. And, one of my coworkers called him our fearless leader. And I've learned so much from him in such a short period of time. And I'd say he was one of the people who has motivated me a lot.
Thank you, Nick.
Mm-hmm.
Nick, okay, would you give me a brief outline about, like, let's say someone invites you in to speak to their group.
Yes.
What would that be like, format-wise? Like, how long would your...
Sure. So usually my speeches are about 30 minutes. And then I have, like, a brief, like, Q&A. And I'm glad they're 30 minutes because I could yap forever. So cutting it to 30 minutes is great. So that way I could kind of put in as much as I can in those 30 minutes. I fill my speeches with anecdotes, analogies, and one of my favorite parts about the speeches is the things that just pop into my head at the moment. Because no one likes a structured or canned speech. I mean, sure, if you want to, learn certain things, or if you're in a college lecture, but at the end of the day, people like to be entertained. People like to have fun, and that's what kind of sticks with them.
Nick, I excuse this corny joke, but I think that 30-minute speech would be really good for 30-year-olds with a 30-minute frame.
There you go. Good one. Throwing it back at me. You remember what I said? Nice. Badooch.
Nick, have you published any articles or books? Do you have an online presence?
Yeah, so as mentioned earlier, I wrote this book called Virtues to Happiness, published it in 2016, and it has to do with, like, the human virtues and about just being, like, a good person. And, there's chapters that include, like, humility or perseverance or things of that nature. And I think it's applicable to all kinds of people and to all ages because no matter how good we are, we could always improve a little bit more. We could always be a little bit better human being. And I was very much inspired writing it because, every month for 4 years I was writing a blog post, and I'm very happy that it turned into a book. And then the following year, 2017, I published From Zero to Success. I got to thank my dad for that title. He came up with it. And that just is a short little book, about 60 pages, but it has to do about work and about being a better worker. And yeah.
Nick, I actually did not know that you had been published. So that's great.
Awesome.
Let's say someone is on the fence about whether to bring you in to talk to their kids and put some motivation in them. What would you say to these people that are maybe on the fence, like, I don't know about this guy. Is he going to do the job?
Yeah, no, wow, that's a very creative question you have there. Well, the way I like to put it is that, what do they have to lose? Because this could only, move the ball forward, right, to wherever they are. I'm just trying to help them to wherever they want to go.
Excuse me. Ladies and gentlemen, this guy is the real deal. He has been through a lot, and, he has found success in life against all odds, and he continues to do so on a daily basis, and he practices what he preaches. He's a very positive person. You can't go wrong with Nick del Castillo. Sorry, Nick, you were saying.
Oh no, thank you for that little interlude, but yeah, Will, as you were saying that, it reminded me of what I like to tell people often, that even motivational speakers need motivation. So we all need it, and I'll put it this way: with the snap of a finger, you can actually change the course of your life right now. For example, if someone has a difficulty with smoking, they could literally say right now, "This will be my last cigarette." But that's the easy part. You change the course of your life. The hard part is the long run, which is perseverance, to live that out. And I know that it's a lot easier said than done, because even with the book I wrote, with Virtues to Happiness, I tell people it's a lot easier to write about virtue than it is to live it. Anyone can say, oh yeah, it's good to wake up on time, it's good to be temperate, it's good to be just, it's good to have hope. But then when push comes to shove, or when the heat turns on, people are like, it's not that easy. Then it's like, I don't know, I'm gonna cut corners.
Nick, are there any people besides that man you mentioned from your work earlier who you could say achieved against great odds and found success where it was difficult to find? Any people through history or more recently?
Sure. Yeah, and the first person that comes to mind is actually my own mother. She's been through a lot, and even right from a year before I was born in 1982, my family had gone bankrupt, and my parents are just amazing people. Even my mom, going through that bankruptcy and having moved to place, and everything has a plan and a purpose, because there was meaning in that. Because had that not happened, and maybe I wouldn't have been in the U.S., well, maybe I would have never met you, So the thing is that my family coming to the U.S. was a big, risk. But they say fortune favors the bold. So I really thank my mom for always being there for me, for whenever things are negative. She was kind of sort of like that strong, pillar of support. When things are going really chaotic, you need that one person that's not swaying with, vacillating with, going back and forth, of being uncertain about things. Whatever happened in my life, she was always there for me and is there for me. And I owe a debt of gratitude to her, and also to my family, and even some of my close friends. And yeah, we all need that person in our lives that, when everything is shaking, that to remain strong and firm.
yes. So you touched there on another thing, which is the fact that we need each other.
Absolutely.
Would you say that? We need help sometimes.
Absolutely. And what it reminds me of is Stephen Covey's book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. He talks about being dependent. Think of like children being dependent, which is not anything wrong, but there's some people who need to be dependent given their circumstances. But then there's a level of maturity when you're independent, which I know in the U.S. it's, highly exaggerated, the whole meaning of being independent. Say, now I'm off on my own, have my own job, my own money, my. But the problem with independence in that sense is that it seems a little bit selfish. It sort of seems like whatever I want to achieve, I can do, and I don't need anybody. That's why Stephen Covey talks about a higher level he called it interdependence, where you're independent, but you also know how to trust people and rely on people. Because think about it. If you can't trust and rely on people, you can never grow. Think of all these great companies like Amazon, Google, Facebook, the big, behemoths of our era. Guess what? It's not a one-man show. I'll give you that much. I'll tell you that much.
I agree with that. I think that independence taken to the extreme can lead to a lot of really lonely people who aren't that successful.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, I don't want to take away from your motivational approach. Mm-hmm. I know you're not putting down independence, but
correct.
I'm just commenting on this point.
Sure.
What else? Anything else you'd like to add?
Sure, yeah. As I mentioned earlier, I guess I could talk forever. That's like my blessing and my curse.
And by the way, it's been about 30 minutes now, so the 30-year-olds...
Oh, that's right. We might be losing them. There you go. So this portion is more for the middle-aged, for all you people listening. And what I would tell people is that really go for what you genuinely want to do. Now, some people may be saying to themselves, "Oh, what if I can't? What if I'm, married with kids and have to work this job? Also, my kids would starve." I'd say, well, right now that's a wonderful motivation, your wife and kids. But while you're doing that job, because you have to, right? And actually, that's actually called extrinsic motivation. Intrinsic motivation is because you do it because you really like it, but the extrinsic motivation has to do because, kind of because you have to. Yeah, kind of. Yeah, exactly. Thanks.
In a sense, at least.
Yeah. Sure.
In an immediate sense.
Correct. So you're motivated, but it's kind of indirect because you have to, put food on the table. So what I would say is focus in on your extrinsically motivating job because we all have to eat. I understand that. But then after your 9 to 5, focus in on your intrinsic motivation because they actually mesh together. Your extrinsic motivation will help you with your intrinsic motivation because if you focus in on your intrinsic motivation, you might starve. So you need both, and then hopefully, if the circumstances are right, and some people do have this dream, they're doing exactly what they want to do. And even for people with intrinsic motivation, they're doing some things that they don't like to do, whether it's, bookkeeping, or whether it's traveling, or whether it's dealing with certain clients, whatever it is. There's never a perfect world out there, but we can be a lot happier when we really, focus in on being passionate about what we do, and we can inspire others.
Thank you, Nick.
Mm-hmm.
What are some... Okay, actually, before I ask that...
Sure.
Now, you talked about getting up in the morning and how important that is as a place to start for pretty much everyone who wants to be successful.
Sure.
What about the rest of the day? Like, how do you have advice for using your time well the rest of the day?
Sure. And what I would say is focus in on doing the things that are most important and the most urgent things. The thing is that sometimes it's in our human nature to kind of put things off. And by putting things off, you're actually making it harder on yourself. So if you get more difficult things, the more important things out of the way first, the rest of the day can go a little bit more smoothly. So throughout the day, it's kind of a reflection of your life. You know, in life, you're born, and then after X number of years, whether it's 80 to 100 years, however long you may live, then it's your life ends. But think of like each day as a new life. You're born in the sense that you wake up in the morning, and then at the end, you kind of like you clunk out and you fall asleep. So with each day, there's something that you can learn. There's something that you can get out of each day. And sometimes people kind of miss it. They feel like, oh, I'm bored, or oh, I'm tired, or oh, my life is terrible. But if you think about it, each day is a gift. There's some people who did not wake up this morning. So we should always be thankful. That's one of the things I wanted to focus in on is gratitude. Whenever you're feeling negative, focus in on gratitude. Gratitude should be our attitude.
Nick, what are some of the things that get in the way of success?
Wow, there's so many. I'm going to go through a whole litany of them. But anyway, I guess I'll start out by one of the things is the past. Sometimes in the past, we may have had a hurt, a difficulty, an unfortunate experience, and we think that that's what's going to happen in the future. So we've trained our brains to believe things that may or may not happen. So I like this one thing, which I'm stealing from somewhere, because I did hear this from somewhere else. I didn't make this up. The whole thing of like the elephant, the baby elephant, that was actually tethered by a rope. So what happened is that the owner of that elephant always pinned it down because, obviously, to keep it within range or to keep it from escaping, I guess. I'm not really sure why. So then as that baby elephant, no matter how hard the tug was, the baby elephant couldn't break through because that elephant believed it couldn't because it couldn't at the time. But then what ended up happening, kind of an interesting thing, is that elephant, once it grew up, it was still tethered by the same rope. But it could very easily have broken through, but it didn't. It always stayed tethered because it thought that it couldn't from many years ago. So that's what I'm saying. If your past was a mistake, it doesn't mean that your future will be. So sometimes there's difficulties that we couldn't overcome in the past, but the present and the future are different.
So, look, if you're a tethered elephant, or if you know a tethered elephant, we have someone who can help you. Nick,
kind of an interesting analogy.
Nick, no.
All right.
Earlier you gave some kind of slogans. Now, Nick, would you say you're driven to drive others?
Yeah, and I like the way you phrased it. Absolutely. And the funny part about being driven to drive others is that when I do that, I help them and myself. And whenever I'm looking down on myself or doubting myself, one, I don't help myself, and two, I'm not helping others. So when I give these motivational speeches, I have to say it's a little bit selfish because I'm actually helping myself. I feel entertained. I feel alive. And hopefully the audience does too, because really the purpose is for them to benefit. But I just genuinely enjoy it. And you know what? I have to say it's like a gift that I've been given to be able to speak to crowds. I know a lot of people have the fear of public speaking, and I have many fears, but that's not one of them. So I don't know. So many people complain that I have this loud, high-pitched voice, and then now as an adult, I'm like, that's pretty cool. Maybe I don't need a microphone sometimes because I can just reach out to, with this kind of very loud, sonorous voice, which is kind of funny because I was born in Sonora in Mexico, in the Sonoran Desert, and, it's kind of funny because sonorous, get it? Sonorous,
yes,
Sonora,
yes,
that's my connection.
Let's see. Looking through my notes here, ladies and gentlemen.
Should we go for another commercial break?
Yeah, sure.
Well, commercial break. I haven't posted anything yet, but look for Eventbrite, Nick del Castillo. I've done one Eventbrite back in June at Patria's restaurant, and I'm looking forward to keep doing more Eventbrites. So take a look at your Eventbrite.
Okay, one more commercial here, ladies and gentlemen. Nick is also, he's not, I wouldn't say aspiring. I would say he's also an accomplished DJ, and he's DJ Nicky Del, and check him out.
Well, I'll put it this way. I guess, unfortunately, I'm not like a DJ, but that name was given to me by this person. He, DJ Nicky Del, and it was kind of like a humorous thing. And but I used to actually be a break dancer. So I was kind of in sync with the DJ in that sense, when there's like these, techno beats and whatnot.
Nick, I had no idea.
All things start coming out in the interview, right? And the thing is, I love breakdancing. I did it from May of 2001 for my junior prom back in the day. I know I'm dating myself right now. And then I stopped actually October 5th, 2013. That was actually my brother's wedding. That was my last debut. I didn't know it was going to be my last one, but then my back started hurting. And then my mom was like, hey, Nick, promise me that you won't do this anymore. And I promised my mama I wouldn't do that and thankfully so, because I don't have the best back. So, but yeah, it was so much fun. I guess it was worth it, even though sometimes I got a little bit of back issues. But yeah, that was that. I had so much fun.
Nick, couple more questions.
Sure.
Now, do you have how can we go out wanting to succeed, or we get motivated? How do we measure our success? How do we measure our success, Nick?
Wow. Well, I'm glad that you asked that question, because sometimes people will go off into a venture and they give up. And I think sometimes they give up because they don't see immediate results, which I can kind of understand, because if you're going to try something new, you're going to want to get your ROI, your return on your investment. So I would have measurable goals. For example, if you're going to do motivational posts, try to have a goal to do one a week and stick to it. And if you're going to do motivational videos, stick to it to once a week. And so you have already what you want to do, and then you hold yourself accountable. Going back to the third secret of success, have someone to hold you accountable. Have a mentor, have a friend, have someone that you speak to, because sometimes we're a little bit blinded by ourselves. Actually, sometimes we have some blind spots that we don't really see. That's why others from the outside, they say, hey, wait a minute, you actually didn't sound right here, or you weren't motivated in this area, or what about this? And things come into new light.
Nick, thank you. Nick, another question.
Sure.
If you have more time.
Absolutely.
Okay. What would you say is the relationship between failure and success?
They're actually closely linked. It's interesting because sometimes people think that success and failure are complete opposites, and I would venture to say that they live side by side. They're actually very closely tied in. Because I'd say the opposite of success is not so much failure, but the opposite of success is indifference or laziness. Because when you have indifference, you're stagnant and you're like a swamp that stinks and doesn't want to get anywhere. But if you have movement, you may fail, but as you're failing, you want to fall forward. You know what I mean? Because if you have a string of failures, those strings of failures will eventually turn into success. And it's like in sales. The more people that say no to you is the closer that you're going to get to that one person that says yes. But you have to go through failures. It's just part of life. You got to go through all those no's. And when you do get that yes, and when you do get that success, not only are you a stronger person, you learn from your failures, hopefully, but you appreciate it more. If you were to get something, for free, then you won't really appreciate it. But when you really work hard, when you really have struggled and you've made it, then you can share that experience with others. But don't get me wrong, going through failure is painful. It's a terrible experience, but you can turn that terrible experience to something positive when you move forward. Thing is that we experience the same realities, but on the inside, we choose how do we interpret those realities. Some people, think of two people who failed in the same thing. One person may say, I'm doomed and I suck, and then they may give up. The second person might be like, well, I failed, but I learned something and I'm going to keep going. So we create like our stories. My mom said, we're the architects of our own destiny. Sometimes, it's what this beautiful phrase that I've heard in the past saying that life isn't what happens to you, but what you do with what happens.
Thank you, Nick. To take that a little further.
Sure.
Would you have any advice for anybody who has not only experienced failure, but has gotten really stuck for a long time, maybe? Any advice or?
Yes, being stuck for a long time is very difficult because if you get stuck just for a little bit, then you feel like, okay, I had a bad day, had a bad week, had a bad month. But then it's interesting, what if someone's had a bad life? And it's just sort of like, nothing's ever worked out for me. Nothing's ever, no matter how hard I tried, things are always just so challenging, so difficult. Well, I put it this way. I'm not disagreeing with those people because, to be honest, there are some people who have gone through some very horrific and some very miserable things in their lives. But what I like to say is that try to turn it on its head. Try to use it to your advantage. It seems like a lot of the greats in this world were able to turn a very negative situation into something positive by finding the love and finding the strength inside themselves. Say that I'm greater than the circumstances outside of me. So whenever something is difficult, say to yourself, I am much greater than the circumstances here. And also be filled with hope, because if you're not filled with hope, then you'll never go forward. And also, you can kind of will things into existence, thinking that like things are so bad, so negative, so difficult. If you keep focusing on the negative, you're just going to become more negative. But if you focus in on the positive, things may still be difficult, but things might turn around. So focus in on the little victories. It's like you may not turn your life around overnight, but if you could do one thing, whatever it may be, whether it's I'm going to do 10 push-ups in the morning, or I'm going to write a little sticky note that says life is great, or a little smiley face, whatever it is, I don't care what it is, it doesn't matter. But what does matter is that it changes you just to the right direction. If you do one thing differently that's positive each day, you can actually get out of a lot of negative patterns.
So you would focus more on that practical advice, which is about changing something specific or something small.
Yeah, correct.
Or maybe rather than just looking at your past or progress in a negative way. I mean, you don't. Yeah. It's not about so much analyzing positive or negative what you've done so far. It's about moving forward.
Exactly. You want to move forward. Sure, in the past, if you look back on it, you want to learn from your past and then move forward. Always have like forward direction.
Yes.
Yeah.
Back to what Nick said about living in the present.
Yeah, which I have to say, it's hard. It is really hard because our mind tends to live in the future and sometimes in the past. But really, the way to conquer this, and the way I think to conquer negative thoughts that we all suffer from to one degree or another, is to be 100% present into what you're doing and give it your all. Because if you keep distracting yourself, focusing in on positive things, keeping a tight schedule, living order, living the virtues, day in and day out, you're going to be so busy with positive things, you won't have even time to focus in on anything negative.
Nick, another question. You talked about hope. I assume you think hope is something important.
Absolutely.
Why is hope important, and how can you foster hope?
Hope is extremely important because you could be stripped of your money, your fame, your power. You could be defamed. You could lose material possessions. You could lose a heck of a lot. The one thing that we should never lose is hope, because hope is like our anchor. Hope is that anchor that helps us to be grounded in goodness and truth. Because if we have hope, we can get out of anything in one time or another, Because the thing is that if you give up hope, then you've given up everything. But if you have hope, everything will come to you at one point or another. So the thing is, whenever you're in a dark moment, I like to kind of think, I got this actually from this book called Emotional Intelligence by Daniel Goleman, which is a wonderful book. They were saying that the mind goes into meltdown mode when you're in this metaphorical room and you think that you cannot get out. But you can always get out, ladies and gentlemen, speaking to the public here, is that open up that psychological window, let some air in. Because if you honestly think that you cannot get out, then not only will you not, but you're going to go into panic mode. But always know, no matter how difficult the situation is, there's always that little window, always a little door in that room that's smothering you. There's always hope.
Thank you, Nick. Can you tell me again how you would define success? Like,
absolutely.
Maybe someone thinks their life isn't that great.
Oh yeah, there's many people like that. Yeah.
Well, I don't know. What would you say to them?
Sure. First, what I'd like to say is that I mentioned this in almost all my speeches, that a lot of people think success is money, fame, and power. MFP, not multifunction printer. Had to throw it in there. Okay, so what it is.
By the way,
that,
Nick, I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, it's okay.
I'm really sorry.
It's okay. We're having here a dialogue. Go ahead, Will.
I had a rough day yesterday. I lost all my fame and power.
Oh wow. Poor you. I should have seen you yesterday then. So I could have been with you. Okay, I'll put it this way. So the world defines success as money, fame, and power. But think about it. You can go to Google and see people who are celebrities, athletes, musicians that have money, fame, and power, and a lot of them are in drug problems, alcohol problems, relationship problems, unfortunate suicides. So this cannot be what success is, because true success ties in with happiness, and happiness comes from living the life of virtue. And real success is using your abilities at the service of the others, and then you will be happy. Because sometimes people want to be successful, not because they want to be successful, because they want to be happy. But when they want to be successful because they think money, fame, and power will bring happiness, and it doesn't bring happiness, they go into this vicious cycle and resort to drugs and alcohol. So true success is really getting out of yourself and serving the others.
Very, very interesting and wise answer, Nick. I forget what I was gonna ask.
If not, I could fill in for a little bit. Okay,
Nick,
there you go. You found it.
How can people contact you?
Sure. Actually, I have a YouTube video. It was Nick and then Del, second word Castillo. So Nick del Castillo. You can find me on YouTube, and also I'm on Instagram, and I believe it's Nick _del Castillo. I should probably know this, But yeah, so I got some like motivational posts there, motivational videos of 1 minute in Instagram and also YouTube. Looking to build that up and looking to reach out to as many people as I can. And yeah.
Nick, I'm going back to what you were saying about the definition of success. It's, it's not money, fame, power. As you were saying, it's tied into happiness and the virtues. I had a year a few years ago.
Sure.
Which on paper was pretty terrible.
Sure, we all had some of those years.
But what I realized recently, and especially, well, maybe even remembered it through this conversation, is that it actually was a pretty dang good year. And maybe I didn't think I was that virtuous, but maybe I was actually practicing some things that were good. Like I didn't have a great job. I had a really bad job, but I had something to do during the day.
Sure.
Also, I got out of myself in I lived away from my parents for the first time in a while, and that was fun.
That's a step forward. Sure. Absolutely.
Okay, enough about me. Maybe somebody could relate to that. That's not to say I have a lot of things I want to accomplish. Nick, here's a question. How would you relate? You're talking about success. In a way, you're talking about greatness. How would you relate the ordinary and the extraordinary? What's your philosophy on that?
Sure, I think there's definitely a connection. I think that when you aim to be extraordinary, sometimes you just kind of don't achieve it or miss the forest for the trees. But when you focus in on doing the ordinary things well, tie your shoe well, brush your teeth well, put your hat on nice and straight, or make sure that the little, all the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted. When you do a lot of these little things well, then you can achieve extraordinary things. And the extraordinary comes out of the ordinary. Think of the analogy of a football team that they're very well organized and everyone knows how to catch the ball really well. Everyone runs their plays just as their coach asked them to. And think about it. What if there's a quarterback that can only throw the ball 4 yards, or a running back that can only run 4 yards at a time? If that quarterback and that running back run 4 yards every play guaranteed, they're going to reach the end zone every drive. Now, if you have like a flashy football team that, they're throwing these long bombs, but they don't always catch the ball, or they fumble the ball, or they take too many crazy risks, or they're kind of all over the place, they may look really flashy. Oh, look at that 50-yard pass, but then the next play is an interception. So being consistent in the little things, I think, is key. Going back to the fourth secret of success. The little things done in the ordinary life will lead to extraordinary results.
Nick, that reminded me of the tortoise and the hare.
Yep. I love Aesop's fable. I love it. I love Aesop.
But that fable was that where'd you get that one from? The one about the 4 yards per play. Did you make that up?
I actually did. Think about it, because if you have that first play, so you first you're at 1st and 10, and then your next play you got a 4-yard pass, you're at 2nd and 6. Yep. Next play you're at 3rd and 2, and then the next play 1st down. So
you don't even need a 4th down, ladies and gentlemen. In the Nick del Castillo doesn't even need a 4th down to get you results. To get you in the end zone.
Well, it's funny though, because sometimes in life I feel like it's 4th and long, and I'm saying to myself, how the heck am I going to get out of this situation? How the heck am I going to find a job? How the heck am I going to do anything? And then all of a sudden things just work out at the end. Obviously we go through sufferings and difficulties, But I'd say be brave in life. That's kind of like the closing message I want to get in. Don't be afraid to go out there. A lot of times fear is what holds us back. And if you do that, will you suffer a little bit? Sure. But if you keep moving forward, eventually you're going to blossom.
Nick, now we've been painting a picture together. Let's say there's any blank areas in that canvas. Is there anything you'd like to fill in for us?
Well, what I'd just like to say is, focus in on serving the others, going back to the other person, because sometimes we get so caught up with our own success or our own self-improvement. Sometimes you see people like kind of in the internet or on the web, they say, I want to achieve this, I. We live in this I generation. So if we focus in on the others, we will be a lot happier. And we all have different gifts and abilities, but it should all be tied into love. Love defined as, doing what's best for the other person and having a heart full of joy.
Anything else you'd like to add?
That'd be it. I've been yapping for a long time. I don't know if you will. What have any questions?
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we are overlooking a beautiful skyline of Boston here in
beautiful view. I would agree.
In the park in Arlington, Massachusetts. So you can come find us right now, here and now, but we're not going to be here when you hear this. Because we live in the present moment.
Oh, good one.
And so should you.
That's right. That's right. So thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you, Will.
Nick, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Likewise.